Hello and welcome in. I am Miss Kinghorn and we are back here in Planet Zoo and back in our Red Lane Zoo here as well. And today we are going to be adding in the flamingos. You're probably wondering why. So there is a species of flamingo called the Chilean flamingo, and they would be perfect for the zoo. They would fit in with the biomes, the continent, everything would be well. Unfortunately, we don't have them in game. So we're going to play pretend with the Greater Flamingo, which, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that we're going to have to do because we don't have the particular species in here. Now, this is my second actual proper attempt at building this. I said about it a couple of weeks ago or a couple of videos ago that I tried. And I had multiple attempts when I did it last time, and I just couldn't get it to really work. And here we are, going again, and this time we have succeeded in getting all of this in here. And yeah, I'm happier with this one. I have to be honest. I think this is a lot better position, a lot better idea, and things like that than what I had before. So. Yeah, I think we're going to get there with this time. So with this one, this is next to the prairie dog habitat. We've kind of got this little sort of, it's not quite an offshoot because it's like going to be one of the main paths, but it is sort of the Spected Bear hard shelter is kind of just up the little ramp opposite. And so it's kind of tucked away at the moment, a bit of an isolated kind of area, but it's going to be probably quite a busy way through. I think we're kind of splitting the main path off, and one of it is going to come this way round, and then the other one is going to go around the other side of the bears onto where the anteaters are and things like that. But we'll get back to that later on. What we're doing, you've seen me place in all of the landscaping and trying to work out sort of the pools and where I want those to be, and they are all at sort of 3 different heights in here, which kind of makes it a really nice kind of area because sometimes you can see a little bit more of them, sometimes they're a little bit more hidden in the water and things like that. I've also added in a kind of a viewing area. It is quite a small little space, and I did think I could make it a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, the way the paths go, it was just too big if I was to make it any bigger. So it's kind of this little tucked in kind of quite small space, but I got in what I could, and I hope that's okay with all of you. Obviously, let me know what you think. If you're liking it, if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments. And yeah, we'll have to see. But I'm changing the little fence. So I've taken the same fence that we have used for the prairie dogs, because I thought, well, it just sort of follows through into here, and we could have that for this little habitat. And then I think at the end of this, we're actually going to have something a little bit different when it comes to the next build in this area. So sort of it will change again, but I thought, why not get that in here, and it makes a nice little area. I have dropped it down so that you can see it a little bit more. The path is not as flat as I would like. I have to say, you can see that right here, trying to get this all in, because it is where it is, it's all sunken into the ground, even sort of by normal sort of game levels. We are, I think, roughly around 6, maybe 7 meters underground at this point, and it's all sort of been cut away to kind of create this little drop down, which I think works okay. It's not ideal, but it proves challenging in some aspects, but we make it work in others in here. And obviously the ground is also sort of, yeah, it's all over the shop, I've got to be honest. But yeah, trying to come up with a way to kind of incorporate this little area here. I wanted it to look and feel very much part of the habitat and not like it's just sort of stuck out the pathing. So it makes a really nice sort of area for your guests to sort of view the flamingos, whether they're in the pool. You kind of have that look down on them, whereas the other paths, you're looking straight on, which I think is a really nice area. It is quite small, so you're not going to get too many people on here, but it's kind of an area where you look at them and then maybe you come up onto this area to have a little bit more of a better view, and then you kind of like take your photos or whatever, and then you can sort of come down afterwards. It's not somewhere you would spend a long period of time or things like that, and maybe it's somewhere you could do like an animal talk from, and it just gives you that raised little area where you can sort of be a little bit more raised up than the animals. That's kind of what I was thinking in here when I was doing this, but yeah, I think it works out pretty well. And obviously we have on the fence, on the back side of it, we've kind of got this angled slope, which I think works in here really, really well, especially because I've tried to put the poles as close to the path as I possibly can. So I wanted them to be sort of very up and close to the guests. So it made the terrain a little bit difficult to work with, because obviously the paths and terrain do not get along, let's put it that way, in there. So I have this sort of backwards sloping kind of concrete. It also means that they couldn't get too close up there, because I feel like they wouldn't be able to get any sort of grip or anything onto that sort of concrete, or I think it's actually plaster, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that's the idea I had in my head anyway, for this sort of area and the sort of fencing and things like that. Right then, while I'm continuing with all of this fencing work, let's talk about the two types of flamingos and kind of the differences and the similarities. So the Greater Flamingo is obviously the larger of the two, and they can grow up to be like 180. I think the largest ever recorded was somewhere around that. Whereas the Chilean flamingo is, whilst it is a larger bird, it is slightly smaller, and they have a height of between 110 and 130 centimeters. So slightly smaller, but not too bad. And their plumage is slightly darker than the Greater Flamingo. Obviously they're both still pink, but it's just a slightly darker sort of shade of pink, and they differentiate by their legs. So the Chilean flamingos have grey legs, whereas the Greater Flamingo has pink legs. And it's just some sort of differences between the sort of two in there while we're going through the habitat. So you can see I've added in some of the rock walls. We do go through and sort of change all of this up a little bit more, because it was starting to look a little bit samey, and there is that one annoying piece that I didn't delete. We can all see the bit I'm talking about on the end there, and yeah, it was just in the way, so I ended up deleting that out as we go along. But yeah, this is a zoo, and you can just see in the back corner all of the pieces that I built in the style. So I've often said about this sort of area of like storage of where, because I've created things like these sort of rock walls, I created some fences, some ideas for loads of other bits and pieces, and also things like the benches and stuff like that, because I use like this one bench that is basically used throughout all of this. I've kind of just got it, and it's like in its colours and things like that, and I can just click on it to duplicate it. Things like that are all in the back there, usually out of shot, and they will be in a little while once I hide all of this when we put in the foliage and sort of the trees. But actually looking at this zoo from above, I mean, it's actually doing pretty well. So I said to you it's kind of going to be like a little bit of a triangle. It kind of is. It does have a little bit of a sort of a kick out coming up with like this habitat, and the next two I think are going to kind of be a little bit of an outliers to that, but it's coming together really, really nicely, and I'm actually happy with the zoo, which is a bit of a strange one, because normally when I look at it from above, I'm like, oh, there's so much land left, I've got to do this, and I need to get in so many different animals, and there's so much to do. But actually looking at it, I'm kind of happy with how it's all coming together. Obviously, yes, there are still going to be lots of animals. I think I worked out the other day that if I do the 1-on-1 kind of ratio that we've been doing, this zoo is going to be done in around about April, May time. At the moment, obviously, if there is any more DLCs, if there's any more animals from those that can work in these biomes or sort of in the Americas, then obviously they're going to have to go in somewhere. I'm not going to do every kind of animal. I'm looking at it and I'm kind of going, do you work, do you not work, can you work, how can I get you in? Because I kind of have different sort of areas are going to be kind of for different animals, and that's something you're going to kind of see coming up a little bit later. We're going to have like a forestry kind of like jungle area, and things like that coming in. So I'm kind of skeptical about how some animals are going to work in there, but we'll have to sort of see when we get there. I struggle with this. This water was doing my head in. It's because I have the path over the top of it. So you have to remove the path to then put the water in, to put the path back in. Yeah. You might have noticed there are some irregularities, should we say. And we get there in the end. But yeah, it's one of those frustrating little things. And what I actually wanted to do here is change the watercolour. You'll sort of see me do that. And I've kind of turned it into this like a sort of brown kind of colour in here. And I think it actually works really well, because obviously they're foragers, so they're sort of skimming the water off the sort of bottom, because they like comb it with their beaks. And I felt like if they were kind of doing that, they'd be dredging up all of like the dirt and all of like the soil that's in the bottom, and kind of making that a little bit dirtier and murkier in there, which is what I really wanted for them in here. And so yeah, just something simple like changing the water kind of adds so much more to make this habitat look a little bit more realistic in here. We're up to the planting and things like that. Now, there is... I've placed too many plants. I think that's pretty safe to say. I've placed way too many plants in here, and they're not 100% happy with them, but I am. So, because this is sandbox mode, I have all of those kind of things turned off. So, hard shelter, the ability to escape, the requirements for like land sort of size, things like that. I've switched most of those off, but it still does come up and tell you that there's too many plants and they don't like it, and some of the guests can't see them, and you know what it's like. Anyhow, that's kind of, there's a few little bits like that, but we do end up getting in a really nice sort of habitat, and I feel like it's a really nice kind of lush green kind of habitat, but also very kind of basic. There is plenty of room for them in here. You also notice that flat little area up there. That is where I'm going to build the hard shelter. Now, I was thinking that they weren't going to have a hard shelter because I felt like they could survive up there. Then I was reading up a little bit more and figured that they actually do need somewhere. They don't do well in like cold temperatures or in rain or things like that. So, in terms of like that, then they need somewhere to kind of go to safety. And also, this zoo is kind of based roughly in like Florida, kind of southern United States. At least that's where it is on the map when I placed it, in that kind of temperate kind of biome down there. So obviously hurricanes, things like that are going to have an impact to them. So I feel like you wanted somewhere for them to be shut in when it sort of is needed, and things like that as well in there. But that's coming up. But now we're getting on to the trees. I do place a couple of trees in here. I also place quite a few on the outside of this coming up because I wanted to give you a shield to sort of that back section, and this is basically the edge of the zoo. So where last time we were right over the other side doing the llamas and alpacas, this one we're back over to the other side. Now I'm going to not do that again. We're now going to kind of follow the path round a little bit more. It was just that I wanted to kind of flip over there, finish that area off and get that all sorted. If you haven't checked that video out, I will put a tag up into the top right corner for you, so you can check that one out, and you can also have a look at the whole playlist in here, and you can sort of see how the zoo grows and develops over time as well in there. But here we're kind of doing a raised planter. We kind of had this space because of the terrain manipulation for the prairie dogs in here. I haven't done the same thing on this one. I've made this kind of very flat, but it means that I have to kind of hide some of this area up a little bit more. So I thought, let's have a raised planter. We can have some sort of trees and tall plants and things like that that the flamingos aren't going to get to. They can't climb, they can't do any of that. So I thought it was a nice little safe area, and it just hides what's going on underneath perfectly fine. I did struggle with the plants. You might notice that here I tried to pull out as many sort of plants as I possibly could. Not many of them really worked. Shockingly, I was actually kind of surprised by how well or how badly that all worked in here. But yes, this is that little back section, so you can sort of see just how much we have cut down from this section, which is then like cut down again. Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird one to kind of get in here, but we have this quite small hard shelter. It's perfect for the number of animals that we actually have in here, but it's not that big. It's not that of a sort of grand kind of build. It is quite simple. I just basically put a layer of limestone around, and then I add plaster to the inside of this, and then clad the outside as usual in there as well. But yeah, that's pretty much all we do for this sort of hard shelter and finishing off this habitat. But whilst we're having that, let's have some more differences between the two types of flamingos. So the Greater Flamingo is actually is of least concern, whilst the Chilean flamingo is near threatened. They are found basically in most of South America, so Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina and Brazil. They have also been introduced to Germany. I don't really know why. It seems like a complete opposite, but anyway, they are mainly restricted to salt lagoons and solder lakes, but these areas are actually vulnerable and threatened due to their habitat loss and the water pollution and things like that from agriculture, things like that as well. So that is why they are classed as near threatened. But whereas the Greater Flamingos, they are basically found in quite a few areas. So they are found pretty much through the northern and coastal areas of sub-Saharan Africa, the Indian subcontinent, most of the Middle East, and the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean. Yeah. I kind of understand why the Planet Zoo team only have one flamingo in game. It made this a little bit more difficult than what it needed to be. So we're pretending that they are the Chilean flamingo, but actually they are the Greater Flamingos. So yeah, it's one of those things. I can't do anything about it. I would love to see some more kind of flamingo variations. I would just like to see more animals in game, I've got to be honest. So we were basically told there's more coming. We don't know what that more is. I think we're probably going to have to wait until next year to kind of actually work out what animals we're getting, what packs we're getting, how many more. I'm kind of glad that we're not ending on the Zookeeper DLC. I think this game has got so much more in it. But I'm also conscious about if they're going to do like a Planet Zoo 2 in like 5 or so years time, then what's going to be different, really. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's probably the better option to do for that, but I think we've definitely got some more animals in us, we've got some more DLCs, we've got lots more going on, hopefully behind the scenes, and they're not going to stop this just yet. And yeah, we will have to wait and see for that. But I'm hoping for more animals, and I would love to see another type of flamingo or another type, more birds. I think just probably in general. I think let's go out on a high. Let's have birds. Maybe, possibly, hopefully. Anyway, what animals are you looking forward to? Are you waiting to see? Let me know down in the comments below. So as you can sort of see here, while I have been waffling along, we have been building this hard shoulder. So as you can see, we have got all of the plaster in. It's pretty boring. There is nothing really in here. It is just the sort of bare concrete with then the plaster on top, and I also have a feeder in here for them. I did place some outside as well, and also some enrichment for them, just to give them something a little bit interesting to do. Obviously when we did the pools, we added in the big forage feeder. That's kind of their big one sort of major enrichment piece, and I thought that would be perfect right in front of everything else, right in front of the guests, so that everyone can sort of see them out on there. And I have only clad the front and this side of this is into the habitat. I will come along off camera and kind of tidy this sort of area up a little bit more, because it is pretty boring and it doesn't quite make sense with the pathing and things like that. I think I've kind of gone like, oh, we're just gonna plonk all of this down, whereas what I will do is come through once I've sort of finished with this whole back area and actually make this into a little bit more of a realistic kind of backstage area for them, because obviously you have the 2 keeper gates and things like that in the back here as well. But this is the end of the video, so if you've enjoyed this, then please give it a big thumbs up and you can subscribe to my channel. But I will leave you here with the screenshots and the cinematics. But until next time, bye everyone!